Hey guys, so you may have seen on Twitter that I put a post up recently about something I made quite a while ago, a PlayStation 1 with a Raspberry Pi inside. But as you'll see, it looks pretty stock on the face of it. You've still got the connectors on the front for the controllers and the memory card slots. On the back, if I get it zoomed in here, what you find now is that there we go. So what we have now is the functioning ports are power. We have now an HDMI out, and we also have a USB socket as well. The audio and the composite aren't functioning any longer. And the other thing we have under the parallel I/O is a small little, if it's going to come out, yeah, micro USB adapter. That I could maybe, now I've got a 3D printer, I could 3D print a small plate there, but being able to fish that out is far easier than having to disassemble it completely. And just to prove it is, if we open that, you can see inside and the various gubbins and cables in there. So let's have a look. Just a bit of background to this. I picked this up for free actually at my local recycle centre quite a few years ago. I was taking something back and a friend knew I was into these kind of things, and he was there with me, and he shouted us across and he said, "Oh, look at this." And I fully admit, it was on the floor of the recycle centre, and you think, well, why not? So if I just carefully disassemble that, this is already assembled, but what I did do was an instructable on this quite some time ago. So as I step through the components, I will put some pictures up here, maybe it's in the corner, and we can, or maybe it's to the side if I get it like this, and basically just show an overlay. So the first one, maybe I'll put up here. I'll put a picture just to show what it was like originally when I got it. There's a lot more gubbins inside. So after seeing that, the first step then was to remove all the internals. And I'll put another picture up in the corner. And you can see there's lots of bits and pieces. So it was just a general cleanup, and that was to clear out this side of the board. And then it's a case of retrofitting the components you need. So once I'd cleared everything out, cut the PCBs down, this back section is removable, which made life easier. And you can see there's just 3 screws here fixing that on. And the idea was to do it as sympathetic as possible, so from the outside you wouldn't be able to tell what it was. So there's a couple of major components to that. The main one is the controllers. So this actually still works with the original controllers. I didn't find these on the ground. I picked them up on eBay dirt cheap. And so it's just a case of plugging your controller in there as you usually would. And it just gives a much nicer experience when it's the exact same controller as what you used to. So what I did was I went and purchased a PS1 or PS2 to USB adapter that would allow you to, say, plug it in your PC and use the controller there. So what it's a case of doing is, and it's hard to see, but again I can place a more detailed picture in the corner. This is the device here. And basically what it does, it goes from the blue cable. If I zoom us in here, so yeah, so it's this blue cable here that goes in the Raspberry Pi, and then here. And what I did was I took it apart, and then after I disassembled the PCB on the back of the connector, it was a case of just mirroring the connections. So went through one by one and tested those. It soldered those connections up and just mirrored what is on the socket here identically to what's on the back of the socket here. And luckily the adapter I purchased had 2 outputs on to the one USB, so that allowed me to hook up directly both controller slots. So that was the first step. The second step was the HDMI. I could have just done a cable dangling up the back, but I wanted to try and make it look pretty reasonable here. And And so what I did was I placed a panel mount female to female in here. So you'll notice that that's actually an HDMI connector on the back and an HDMI connector there. And then I found the shortest HDMI lead I could. And then that allowed me to then route the cable and just plug it into here. Now the beauty of doing the way this has been done as well is that it leaves the Raspberry Pi relatively untouched. And originally I did start with a Raspberry Pi 2 when that was around. But then when the 3 came out, I upgraded to a 3. And that was a simple case of undoing one screw, that's all the Raspberry Pi is held in with. Swap the connectors, swap the micro SD over, and then the beauty of the Pi is that you can just boot it up, and that worked great. So yeah, so it's quite modular, and if the Raspberry Pi 4 comes out and it's that much more powerful, you could just pop one of those in there. The next thing was to give some external connectivity. As I mentioned earlier, there is the micro SD on the extension, so you can put new games on that way. I'm running RetroPie on this, so it also allows you to load new games on via a USB socket. So that was the next challenge, to load in, to fit a USB. And I did that there as sympathetically as I could again, reused an existing port. And that's just a micro USB panel connector. And then that comes out and then loops itself back around again to the Raspberry Pi. So there you've got your connectivity. You've got your output on your HDMI. Technically, because this is a Raspberry Pi 3B, you've also got Wi-Fi, so that's one of the reasons I upgraded to that. It's nice just to be able to drag and drop across the network. But it's nice to have a full kind of gamut of options. And the last thing is powering it. And the way I did that is, for now, I've kept the original power supply. With the 2, that was sufficient. I must confess, with the 3, I do get some warnings. The current output is fairly low. Because what I ended up doing was finding a output, which is the brown and red wire here from the original PlayStation power supply. If I remember correctly, that was about 8 volts. I've just put that into a small DC to DC converter, and then the output from that DC to DC converter, it just goes directly into the power input on the Raspberry Pi. Sorry, I'm trying not to zoom around, but I'm all over the shop here. Yeah, just power and ground in the Raspberry Pi header pins on the GPIO, and that works pretty well. I am with the 3 now getting some warnings about low power at times. So I think maybe in the future it's going to be time to pull the original power supply out. Since there is the separation, what I was thinking is just getting a wall wart, like a 2 amp or actually 3 amp wall wart, because it should be for the Pi. And taking that apart and then wiring that up to the original figure 8 power connector. And it just maintains that kind of seamless look. You've still got the separation, you know, this circuit's open and everything anyway. The one thing that would be nice to work on is that the power switch it's a latching switch rather than a momentary switch. So that's a bit of a shame. It would have been nice if it was momentary, and now I could have controlled the power easier. So maybe if I swap out this power supply with a wall wart, maybe I need to go back over that and think how I can do that. So yeah, so that's largely it, to be honest. A lot of the work was the disassembly of the components in the existing board, and then it was the taking apart of the PlayStation USB adapter and then resoldering onto these connectors. Everything else has largely been plug and play. So yeah, so I thought what I'd do is I'll stick a little bit of footage up of it running, and just so you guys can see what you get when you start it up. But it was a good little project. It's, as I mentioned earlier, all on instructables. I will link that down below as well. So if you're interested, you can go through. And to be honest, you can apply the same principles to most other consoles. you know, snares and other ones which are, you know, pretty good candidates as well. And you can get the similar type of USB to input adapters, and then it just maintains that nice look on the outside of something being original. And the idea as well was thinking that it's £90 for the PlayStation Classic, which is kind of what spurred me to dig this thing out, because I must confess it's something I don't use on a daily basis. I don't use enough. As my kids are getting older, hopefully it's something they'll use. I have made them a little arcade cabinet which they enjoy. But yeah, so it's just to work out, that's £90. I was lucky I picked this up for free, but I imagine you could probably get another one for free or pretty cheap on eBay or Gumtree or something like that, or Craigslist in the States. And then it's a case of getting Raspberry Pi, you know, that's about £30. And the other ancillary parts, I'll put the prices down below as well. But I think you're going to come below that £90. But also you've made something unique and something that you've made. If something goes wrong, you can upgrade it. Fix it, but upgrade is a big thing, because then you can upgrade it. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to do that with PlayStation Classic. I guess we'll find out, but it comes with 20 games. But the beauty of doing a RetroPie based one is that you can play any of the ROMs of the games that you own. So if it's SNES or other games, you can Game Boy, you can pop them on there and they'll work. So I think it's pretty decent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick to the just the outro. I'll show some footage of it booting up and playing. So thanks for watching, guys. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and thanks.